I suppose the big news in the sector really at the moment is that, well, like any other sector, the dreaded credit crunch. But reading a few sort of materials recently on various kind of websites, it looks like a lot of the share prices are actually rallying or even increasing. So that there seems to be some decent economic kind of factors really to suggest that it's not all doom and gloom out there really. Well, I think if you're a graduate looking into the recruitment industry at the moment, a lot of the companies are looking for not so much qualification in a certain type of degree so much, but more some sort of evidence of competition. Now it can be in your degree, obviously achieving your 2-1 or your first, but it can also be in other fields. I think a lot of companies are looking for people that have done work experience where you've had to be competitive against other people in your peer group. Things like sports work quite well in recruitment consultancy, where you've had to compete, but perhaps used to losing as well. Any involvement in societies, debating societies, and that kind of thing. A lot of employers want to see candidates that kind of stick out from the rest, really. I would certainly be looking at public sector recruitment companies at the moment. There seems to be a big shift in moving away from a lot of other industries into public sector. So I would keep a kind of close eye on those guys. However, a lot of people know that, so the competition for places in those public sector recruitment companies is fierce. I would also really look at some of the small startup businesses in recruitment consultancy because they're the ones that are looking to grow, perhaps have less costs to bear, and know their marketplace really, really well. Well, you can find a lot of the startup recruitment businesses on business networking websites. LinkedIn is a pretty popular one these days that gets used a lot. You can look at companies that are perhaps fairly much in their infancy, and you do that by, if you look on LinkedIn, look at directors of recruitment companies and how long they've actually owned the company for. You'll probably notice that there might be a startup, or at least in the early stage of their growth. Well, don't be afraid of going for the smaller startup companies. There is a bit of a groundswell in thought that the bigger companies offer a better training schemes. Not necessarily. The small companies might offer something much more tailored, very bespoke, and they'll actually be very impressed that you found them. I'd be looking to really focus on not just making 1 or 2 applications right now. A lot of companies obviously aren't hiring. What I would do is be really focused in your approach. Make sure you understand why you're going into recruitment consultancy, understand what the core skills are that are required and why you think you have them, and then use all the sources you can. You can obviously use recruitment companies such as ours. There are some really good websites that are independent, such as the REC and the Association of Executive Search. But also Graduates for Recruitment is a pretty good website with sort of tips on how to find other recruitment companies as well. I would then really go about tailoring your CV, really focus it on recruitment consultancy. No just sort of sending a generic graduate CV these days, especially when there's more competition for work. You've got to kind of, I suppose in your opening gambit, really explain why you think a career in sales, why recruitment consultancy is kind of right for you. If you're thinking about recruitment consultancy as a career, just speak to people in the industry. You can read all the websites you like about different research, but if you speak to people in the industry, they'll tell you exactly what it's about. They'll probably even give you managers that they have in their teams that might even be hiring themselves that you can go and have a chat with.